Flipside Pub and Grill, and like their Facebook page. They're always keeping you updated as well. Joining us now, friend of the show, but always a little bit extra special at Super Bowl because we get to have him in person at the table. It is Sam Bruchhaus. Sam, hello. We're not on your home turf this year. Last year was New Orleans. True, yeah. You're a Tulane guy, but it's a pleasure to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Man, y'all are talking about Fish Fry Friday. I was actually in New Orleans this past weekend, and you're one of my favorite people in the industry to talk about food and music.
Yes, thank you.
So now I'm just sitting here, and it's 2:30, 3:30. You're running a little low on food at the Super Bowl, doing a lot of radio hits and stuff like that, and I'm thinking about fish fry, and I'm like, ooh, man, that sounds good.
So what kind of fish? Because Wisconsin fish, it's battered in beer.
Yeah.
It's fries, coleslaw rolls. So like New Orleans, I would imagine it's different. Is there a southern, like redfish?
Yeah. So we don't really fry redfish. The thing that I had the other day, which you're starting to lose a little bit because the industry in South Louisiana is speckled trout.
Oh yeah.
And so they had that fried at Arno's, which we went to on Saturday. And man, it was great.
So you told me I need to get Vietnamese out here. That's my mission tonight.
Yes.
Well, Bill Michaels and all of my cohorts are at opening night. I'm just going to go look for food. So that's my mission tonight. It is my mission this week. Well, I have a couple different missions. I got to ask everybody about Matt LaFleur.
Okay.
And I said in my opening remarks before bringing you on, like we're all over the guy. Some Packers fans have been over the guy for years, and I don't think that's unique to Green Bay. That's probably true of a lot of teams. But then I talk to people who are outside of Wisconsin, and they're like, you guys are nuts. Or like, hold on, pump the brakes. Nick Costos was on this morning telling us, but like, no, I think he's great. He's built a good staff. So what do you view of Matt LaFleur getting an extension after their season ends 5 losses in a row and then a big blown lead in the playoffs?
I think the amount that you can evaluate what a coach does is probably not over 50% of everything they do.
Okay.
But on the things that you can evaluate Matt LaFleur on, I think it goes as follows. Number one, you got to look at their ability to make defenses uncomfortable or offenses uncomfortable or the other team uncomfortable. I think he's shown an ability to do that, whether that's on the offensive side of the ball, which is his forte, mixing up personnel. I mean, we saw him be able to make defenses uncomfortable with Malik Willis in at quarterback and completely changing elements of the offense. And so I think he's frankly probably one of the top 5 guys at making defenses uncomfortable. You look on the other side of the ball, it's been a defense that has forced turnovers regardless of who the defense coordinator is. So I do think you have to say, in terms of making the other team uncomfortable, teams don't want to play Matt LaFleur.
Okay.
Then you go on to the next thing, which is, are you getting the most out of your players? And I seem to say yes. I mean, like, I think this is probably the best when they drafted Jordan Love that they could expect. I think you get guys like Josh Jacobs back in the building, coming from the Raiders. He has a career year that he's made the most out of the offensive line. No superstar wide receiver, but still a productive offense. On the defensive side of the ball, you got guys like Xavier McKinney and Evan Williams who come from different places, but for the most part, the defensive guys are producing. And Edge Cooper, for example, a guy who was highly touted and one of the first drafted linebackers, ends up being a guy who is in consideration for the Pro Bowl this year. So I think he gets the most out of his players. The thing that holds LaFleur back, in my opinion, is the game management stuff.
Okay. And
basically he slams the brakes on and gets really conservative very early. We've seen this with coaches, in particular offensive coaches, before. I mean, like, as a Saints fan, Sean Payton in the mid to late 2000s, early 2010s would do this all the time. And then when they kind of had a more defensive approach, they would still kind of ramp it up. But I think that is the one thing that if you want to hammer him on, that's the thing. The good thing is that can be improved in a way that, making defenses and offenses of the other team uncomfortable and developing players cannot.
So I'm glad that you brought that up at the end, because my next question was going to be, I feel like there's been it's trendy over the last couple of weeks to criticize head coaches that are play callers, offensive play callers. They're so buried in their play sheet. They're so caught up. I saw Dominique Foxworth this last week basically point out, like, as a head coach, you can outsource play calling, right? Like, you can pass that along. Now that comes with some inconsistencies and you're relying on personnel, but what do you think of, Shanahan, McVay, LaFleur, these guys who are highly touted, great play callers, but like, do you feel that limits them being a big picture head coach of the entire football team?
I mean, like, let's think about it. I hate to put this in terms of wrestling, but like,
it's fine.
I was on a shoot, the Equation coming out February 12th. You get that out on Sumer Sports, hosted by Big E, who is a literal WWE champion wrestler. And he talked about how you can't really plan. Everyone thinks that wrestling is choreographed and is planned, but you can't really plan it because you're on live television with a live crowd who will do who knows what.
Yep. And
so you go out there and you kind of have a time, you have a couple beats, but you got to improvise pretty much everything. And that's the case of the offensive play caller. And so I'd actually say you shouldn't outsource offensive play calling if you know you're good at that. What you can prepare for in the beginning of the week is you can prepare for every scenario, put it on a spreadsheet and say, hey, this is what we're going to do if this timeout, like with this timeout, if we get in this scenario.
Sure.
So I actually think what the Cleveland Browns actually did, very underrated move here, but they brought in an analytics guy from the Ravens with Todd Monken, who is now the assistant head coach. And that's not really a position. That's a position we typically see for like a position coach who is not necessarily a coordinator, but you think could become a head coach in the next cycle, such as Dan Campbell.
Got something to him that's hard to quantify.
Correct. That's not what this guy is. He's literally just the game management guy. Like he is the head coach of game management.
Well, and Vrabel's got John Stryker, or is it John Stryker?
Yeah.
They always talk about him up in Boston. Yeah, one of those guys.
Exactly. So I think you should be outsourcing that, because then you can focus on the improvisation and trying to do the hard part, while the things that for the most part we have figured out, the analytics geeks like me,
sure,
which is like fourth down decision making, field goal decision making, and then to a certain degree timeouts, which is a little bit more read and react. That guy's just focus on that, and that can get you, I mean, quite an amount of production just based off of that. So if I did have a recommendation to make, just like go ahead and get an assistant head coach. I think that's a something that popped up with like yesterday or 2 days ago with the Browns that I think we're going to see a lot more of.
Okay. I want to talk about the Super Bowl. One more thing to build off of that, because you mentioned analytics, fourth down decisions. Do you think we ever get to a place where the field goal becomes more in vogue? Because Sean Payton, his decision-making got a lot of people talking about that after the AFC Championship game. So talk about folks' reaction to that.
No, I don't think so. And the discussion of just taking the points makes no sense. And they're like, well, there's all these new rules. The whole point why you shouldn't take the points is because of the kickoff. It's not the opposite. Like the idea that I'm going to get 3 points and then risk a return where we know that on returns, I need to check the final numbers, but in the middle of the year, the average starting field position was like around the 30. Like then you get 2 first downs. So you randomly get 2 big plays and you're in field goal range. And so that's why the expected points of the 30 is like 1.5. So you're not actually even getting, like you're technically adding 3 points, then just taking a whole nother 1.5 away distributionally.
Sure.
In a way that if you go for it within the 5, you are actually expected to score before the other team scores. And I don't think people really understand that. And there is situations, and there's like, some things are run on simulations. So that's ESPN's, for example, runs on simulations. So it'll bake that in a little bit more, where like the basic open source ones are based off the idea that an offense is always trying to score, which is a good assumption, but not necessarily a great assumption. But the idea that it's going to switch is insane to me, because there's very minute points that typically have to do with, the difference between 25 seconds and 18 seconds, or the difference between 7 points and 6 points of a team trying to score, or it's really like 3 or 5 points or something like that. Those minute ones may switch, but like the core crux of the idea that in the second quarter you shouldn't go for it, I think makes no sense in the data right now.
So you think Sean Payton did the right thing?
100%, yeah.
Interesting. Backup quarterback, conditions on that doesn't do anything for you?
That's the whole point, to go for it, because you're not going to be able to get in that position again. It's not really my opinion. I think it's based on the modeling and it's based off the data. Like the whole point is you're already in a standpoint where you can add win probability in a way that you likely will not be able to later on. Okay.
Sam Bruchhaus here. I'm not even disagreeing. I just, that situation specifically, backup quarterback conditions, I think that really got everybody going. It made for good conversation, which I appreciate. If nothing else, Sam Bruchhaus is here, Sumer Sports. What is the number one reason the Seahawks are in the Super Bowl, in your opinion?
The defense, by far. And if you want me to boil it down, it's because of Mike Macdonald. Mike Macdonald, what I think people don't realize is Mike Macdonald has invented a whole new way to teach defense.
Okay.
And that's why they can trot out nickel every single play, or even dime, and no one knows where the pressure is coming from. No one knows what coverages they're running. No one knows how the coverage is going to break down. And as a result, they've basically been able to shut down the run and the pass with the same personnel and different looks.
They're not matching. I've heard a lot of people say you don't need to match. Greg Olson tweets about this. I don't understand it, but that seems to echo what you're saying.
So the idea, and Mike McDonald's a big proponent of this, and you can go back and find interviews basically anytime he's done interviews across his career where he talks about this, is the idea that what you're trying to do is not match the players, you're trying to match the space. So on 1st and 10, your goal is not to stop the two tight ends from blocking really well. Your goal is to stop them from getting 4 to 5 yards.
Okay.
And so if you think that the best way to stop the team from getting 4 to 5 yards is to play a lighter box and protect against the pass, which is 80% of the time what Mike Macdonald comes to opinion of, then you should do that. And I think teams have lost this, particularly as offenses, including the Seahawks, have started to run 12 and 21 personnel, meaning 2 tight ends or 2 fullbacks or whatever. And they just match, and then they get shredded by Jackson Smith and Jigba because there's not enough athletic people in the middle to cover him, or you're leaving a corner one-on-one.
They're too worried about being beefed up because that's what the offense seems they're trying to do.
Precisely. And that's another element. So the one reason they are in the Super Bowl certified is Mike Macdonald. The second reason is Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Yeah, he's that good.
Yeah, I mean, you look at our data, and we talked about this earlier on in the year where we're like, Josh Jacobs actually is not playing that bad. It's really like the offensive line that is struggling, and it was showing up in our data in a way that it very, very rarely does. We find that Jackson Smith and Jigba is just that good, and like the rest of the offense is not exactly fantastic, including Sam Darnold, but his ability to separate, which is basically a perfect 10 on our scale, his ability to create yards, his ability to run routes is all at a level that we've seen maybe 3 or 4 guys get to in the last 5 years, which is Puka Nacua basically every year and Tyreek Hill once out of the last 2-3 years. So those are the 2 main reasons that I would highlight for sure.
Okay. What's the number one lesson every other team should learn from the New England Patriots this season?
Man, that's a good one.
Because unique circumstances for sure. They had, with the schedule or the coach that just got there, the quarterback who seems to be peaking, but not every team's looking for a coach or drafting a quarterback. So what can other teams take away?
Yeah, I mean, the lesson is it's tough to take away a lesson because let's go through the breaks that they really got, right?
I'm with you.
If there's a lesson, it's like draft a quarterback and develop him, which is like duh.
Yeah, everyone's trying.
But I'm
trying, Jennifer.
Yeah, let's realistically think about this. Let's start with the offensive line because I think that's both the reason why they're here and the biggest question mark. They go out and they move Micah Gwingu from the tackle position to the guard position. We had data that indicated that was going to be a great decision, which it was. They add Morgan Moses, an aging tackle who had a good year with the Jets last year as the tackle. They fill in the left side with Will Campbell, highly drafted left tackle, and Jared Wilson, who was also well touted, but not necessarily like a first round guard. And it just kind of worked, and they were able to scheme around it.
Okay.
And so, that's a big bet. You look at the wide receiver position. They came in with Kayshon Boutte, who didn't necessarily play super well throughout his career. They go get a hurt Stephon Diggs, and those are their pass catchers. Not necessarily the best there. They draft a running back. It's worked out mildly as the season has gone on.
He can't flesh out well analytically. It seems like yards over expected or making it doesn't seem to be. When there's a hole, he's great, and if not, it doesn't seem like it works.
Right, exactly, and that's why we've seen Ramondre still get snaps. So it's the offense you just highlight. It's okay, Drake May's good, and marginally everything else worked out. You look at the defense, and I do think there's elements that they learned, which is number one, you can go get a pass rushing defensive tackle in a way that you can't really get an edge. So Milton Williams was available, and they devoted a ton of resources to him, and they overpaid him. He's basically won 2 games for them now in the playoffs. And frankly, you think of the value they actually got on the season from him, given he struggled with injury, probably was not up to his pay grade, but they went and got a defensive tackle to go across from Barmore. They went and got Robert Spillane at the linebacker position, who was another guy who our data really liked. And he ends up at the linebacker position really working out. But it just all kind of worked, but the highlight is Drake May. So I don't really know if there's a team building lesson to take away, really.
I think for the Packers, just watching was when you get to play the Browns, beat the Browns. When you get to play the Titans, and that's the Packers lost to the Panthers and the Browns. And the Panthers were fine. Yeah. But when you have an opportunity to win 14 games and host playoff games, you have to do that thing. Don't squander that opportunity.
100%. Well, here's what I'll say. Lesson from both of these teams, particularly in the playoffs. Care about special teams.
Oh my God, you're talking to the right person.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
And the national championship game. Look at what happened to Indiana too. We've just been shown so many times.
Yeah. And I'm surprised that Jay Harbaugh in Seattle has not gotten more head coach looks.
Okay.
Because this is a team that struggled on offense in the second half of the season, and then, the defense didn't look that great against the Rams. The reason why they won The reason why they were in the first game and the reason why they won the second 2 games is not because Sam Darnold had a great game. It's not because Jackson Smith and Jigba went crazy. He does that every game. It's because they had substantially better special teams than the Rams.
Yeah.
And that's the Shanahan trees thing. It's why they beat the 49ers too. So it's just like, I care about special teams. It's so important.
I was looking at EPA for special teams the last 5 years, including playoffs, and it was trending. It was Shanahan was bad, and then LaFleur and McVay were like horrendously, like those three at the bottom by a mile. And I don't really know why. Maybe that goes back to, they're the offensive play callers, head buried in the play sheet. Yeah. I don't want to worry about it. I don't know.
Well, we talked about going for it on fourth and the element of the kickoff. That changed the face of the last 2 Rams and Seahawks games in a way that I have not seen anyone talk about. The Rams, after they moved on from Cardi, who was extremely effective at dirty ball kickoffs. So they basically stayed in a game against the Eagles early on this year where Stafford didn't necessarily play very well because they were pinning them at like the 15 and the returners literally could not catch the ball.
Yeah.
Then when they move on from Cardi, they're just like, okay, we're just going to kick it out of the back of the end zone. Well, the Seahawks get the ball at the 35 every single time. If they have Jackson Smith and Jigba, who is averaging basically half of a first down every route. If he runs 4 routes, you're going to get a first down. So if you get eight passing plays, and really it's less so because this is like, shake of the dice. So let's say you get 5 passing plays and they completely shut down any running plays. You're in field goal range.
Yeah.
Just because you decide to kick it out of the back of the end zone. That makes a huge difference in both the Patriots and ironically, this is the first game I think that the Seahawks are going to play in the playoffs where they don't have an insane advantage on special teams. And I think that'll actually show up in the game.
And I'm excited to see that. I have Sam, I appreciate you. I have Sean coming up 5. What should I ask him? Like, what's in his wheelhouse?
Man. So I said
said
Mike McDonald is the reason. He's going to be able to break down the scheme points of what Mike McDonald can do in a way. I can break down the data for you. He's going to break down exactly how he's teaching, and he's going to break down exactly what the schemes are on the back end that make quarterbacks and everyone else struggle so much.
Excellent. Well, we'll start there. And I think this is a really juicy Super Bowl. I know it's a rematch, but I think it's great. Yeah. I appreciate the breakdown and the Packers thoughts as well. Appreciate it, man. Thanks for the time.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
We will be right back. We'll wrap up hour number 1. Then we'll get to Sean at 5.